this webinar. So, as I am recording this webinar, will be posted to our websites. I have disabled your cameras, but I do invite you, if you have questions near the end of the presentation, you're welcome to unmute yourself and come off of mute and ask a question. You can also type your question in the chat, and we will have a time where we can answer those at the end. I'll also be turning off my video at this time. So your participation in this webinar is consent to be recorded. If you do not consent, please do keep your cameras off and your mic muted, and do not use the chat feature. So that is one way that you can participate, but not be recorded in that way, because anything you do put in chat will be recorded. And because of that, please do not put any personal information um, uh, in the chat. If you have specific questions about your situation or about your particular application or any of the details that that I go through today, please send those to our email inbox at wga@wsac.wa.gov. All right, so what we're going to go over today, oh, sorry, go. We're going to go over today is basically just a quick overview of the WA Grant for Apprenticeship, what we call WGA. What are the eligibility requirements for apprentices? If you've received an award in the past, you are maybe more familiar with those, but just kind of go over those again for anybody new. Um, what are some things that you should have before you apply? So we're talking about when the application opens and what are some things that you can get together, gather information before you apply. And then what are some common pitfalls that we see as we review applications that we are hoping that you can avoid by providing us with particular types of information or making particular types of decisions as you go through your application. Then I'll have an opportunity to kind of go over some common questions for WGA. But again, if you have any specific questions, again, please don't disclose any personal information, but you're welcome to use the chat or come off of mute at the end of the presentation, and we can go over those. So the WA Grant for Apprenticeship, or WGA, supports qualified apprentices in a variety of pre-approved programs. These are registered apprentices in state-approved apprenticeship programs through the Washington State Labor and Industries Department. These are programs where you as apprentices get paid to work while you learn a trade. You also have related supplemental instruction hours, classroom hours that you go through that are part of that program. And the Washington Grant for Apprenticeship can help cover the costs related to either getting on the job, getting to work, transportation, tools, equipment, clothing, those types of things, but also can pay for any costs related to those instructional classroom hours. That might be tuition at a community college. It might be fees or books related to being in the apprenticeship program or being in a particular class. So there's a wide range of costs that can be covered by the Washington Grant for Apprenticeship. So there are some eligibility requirements, things that we look for in an application. They're part of the information that you would put into your application. So I want to go over some of those, and some of these are going to be things that you want to gather some information before you apply, or some common pitfalls to avoid around eligibility. So the first one is you need to be in an approved state registered apprenticeship program. This is something that you would register for. You would work in a particular sector in industry. That might be construction, it might be healthcare, it might be within an esthetician school. There are apprenticeship programs in a wide range of areas, sectors of the economy. So this is something that you would need to do before you even apply, and because we will check to see if you are a registered apprentice as one of the first checks in reviewing an application. There is a licensing, permits, apprenticeship, become apprenticeship website that you can look online for more information. It's on the Labor and Industries, this LNI webpage, and it gives more information about how you become an apprentice, what programs are out there, those types of things. The second thing that one of the things that we look for is income eligibility. Now, this is a combination of your income and your family size because the Washington Grant for Apprenticeship is a need-based program, which means that there are income eligibility requirements, and they are based on income that you earn as a family and include all of the people that you might support who live with you in your family. And so those are the things that we will look for to see if you're eligible for an award and how much of an award you might be eligible to receive. You must be a Washington State resident for at least 1 year. So we have apprentices who are registering in a program, moving into Washington. You need to live in Washington, have a Washington address for at least 1 year. So again, this is one of those things where if you've been living here for less than a year, you can provide us with documentation about when you started living in Washington, and we can adjust that. But the idea is you have to be a resident for at least a year before you can become eligible. The fourth requirement is you have to have a high school diploma or equivalent, and that includes a GED, that includes a homeschool diploma. There are a variety of different equivalencies that are out there. And we also have this, what we call an ability to benefit. This means that you have the ability to benefit from higher education and apprenticeship programs. The most common way that we see folks meet this ability to benefit is by earning 6 college level credits at a community technical college, at a institute of higher ed, something along those lines. So that is another requirement by legislation, by law. The upper end of that limit is you cannot have a bachelor's degree or higher. The focus of this is providing Washington residents with a credential, a certification, an industry that will allow them access into the industry. And we want to work toward getting at least 70% of Washingtonians, adult Washingtonians, with some kind of certification. If you already have a bachelor's degree, you've already met that. Congratulations for that. There are other resources that are available for you. So if you do have a bachelor's degree, just email us and we can provide you with a list of some other resources. But the Washington Grant for Apprenticeship is not going to be one of those. You can't owe money for a state grant or loan. There's a very small percent that we see that fall into this category of, let's say that you have a loan from a previous degree that you were pursuing. You can't owe any money in order for us to give you more money. And then the last one, returning applicants. So if you are somebody who got a Washington Grant for Apprenticeship this year or last year, if you've received funds already, there is a requirement to meet what we call satisfactory program progress. And that just means that you are making your way through your apprenticeship program. To kind of dig a little bit into that, just a very little bit into that, if you are a returning applicant, we will check to see if you have met that requirement of at least 67% of hours that you were awarded in a previous award. So typically a full award for a full year is 2,000 on the job hours and 144 related supplemental, that classroom instructional hours. We will be checking for anybody who's applying to get another award. We will be checking that you earned at least 67% of those award hours. So that's, in a full award, full year, 1,340 on the job hours or 96 related supplemental instruction hours. So those things are there. So that is one of the checks that we will do. The idea is we are front loading. We are paying it forward with the money. It's public taxpayer money. So we want to make sure that you are making that progress through the program. The idea is we want you to be successful. We want you to complete this program. That's what this money is for. but we all want to make sure that you are that you're making that satisfactory program progress. Now, we need to wait for the sponsors to post your hours in the online system that we check. And that typically doesn't happen until July, late August, even. So if you got an award previously and you are applying again, you could apply as soon as the application opens, and it's going to open tomorrow. You can apply as soon as that, but it is not going to, you won't have a decision on your application until September at the earliest. So that is going to be just kind of an expectation. Just want to set that out there in terms of the timeline for when that's gonna when that's gonna be happening. All right. So tips for information for you to get, things that you can gather before you apply. So over the next week or so, over the long weekend coming up, whatnot, you can gather together these pieces of information so that when you go into your application, these are ones that you don't typically have just on demand, don't have right at hand. Might have to go search for them. And you can do that. But if you have it before you even start the application, it just makes the whole process a little bit smoother. And when you provide correct information the first time, that reduces the amount of kind of back and forth things that we may have to go through in order to get that information later on down the road. So the first thing is knowing your occupation and your program. A lot of occupations have very similar names. Inside wireman, residential wireman, construction electrician, inside electrician. Those are different occupations. So we use a system where we ask, the first thing we ask from you is your occupation and then your program. So knowing what your occupation is according to your program sponsor, your apprenticeship program, is very important. There is a difference between carpenter and carpenter, scaffold erector. Those are different occupations. They sound very similar, but they have different requirements for the on-the-job hours. They have different numbers of years of requirements. So knowing what that occupation is, that is critical. So to find that information on what your occupation is, you can go on to, you can ask folks in your apprenticeship program. You can just say, hey, what's my occupation? What do you got me in the system? What do you got me doing here? And the other thing that you can also ask them is you can ask them for your program name. So for example, in this screenshot here, we've got Pacific Northwest Iron Workers and Employers Local number 86. Iron workers are really good at knowing which one because we got two iron worker programs. We got 86 and we've got Iron Workers Local 14. Both of those apprentices are eligible. We want to know which one of those programs you're in. So by going to this website here for the labor and industries, it's the ARTS system, apprenticeship um, uh, tracking system. If you put your first and your last name in the box and then click search, you can click on your name and it'll take you to a page like this that'll tell you what your occupation, in this case iron worker, and your program name. In this case, it's the Pacific Northwest Iron Workers and Employers Local 86. Knowing that information before you start your application, that will help. Okay? That will help you get the right information so that we can confirm that, when we're looking up your hours or when we're just trying to check and see, are you a registered apprentice? We know that you've got the right information. We know we're looking at the right record on the system. So again, ask folks in your apprenticeship program or go online, find out that combination of occupation and apprenticeship program name. And like I said, it's the first thing that we're going to ask for you in the application. It's the first thing that we're going to check to make sure that we're looking at the right information. The second thing that isn't always right at hand is your 2024 federal tax return. We base your income need on the amount of money you made in 2024 as reported on your federal taxes. So if you filed your own taxes, if you went through a tax filing company, get your 2024 federal tax return. So that's 2 years ago, federal tax return. And make sure that it shows your filing status. Like, did you file single? Did you file head of household? How many dependents did you claim? That's helpful sometimes for determining your family size. We'll talk a little bit about that more here in a few minutes. But once you have that tax return number, we're wanting to look for the very specific adjusted gross income. In this picture, it's shown line 11 as 63,669. We want that number as your family income. Now, if you round that number, for example, if you can't remember, if you can't find your tax information, but we'll talk about that as well. But if you look, oh, I made about 64,000, about 65,000, and you just put in a rounded number, 65,000, we're going to randomly check those rounded numbers and say, hey, we just want to confirm that that's the right number. So we're going to pick a random, every few that come through with that kind of rounded number. We're going to pick them and go, hey, just verify your income. And you're going to have to go and find this information anyway. So having it available before you apply, putting in the exact number, this is also going to reduce the number of potential back and forths. The other note that I'll make on this is that if you have W-2s, those documents don't show this information. They don't show your filing status. They don't show the dependency you claimed, and they don't show your adjusted gross income. They're just a picture from, say, one of your employers. We don't know. We can't confirm that that's your entire income for the 2024 federal tax year through use of a W-2. So W-2s usually are not good documents to use. There are rare cases when we'd ask for them, but in general, your 2024 federal tax return document, and use that number, that adjusted gross income. Put that number in there under your family income. That'll help smooth things along. So one thing to note about your filing status for 2024. So if you filed single or a head of household in 2024, but you're married now, doesn't matter if you were married before or after you filed, we need to have your entire family, your entire household's income for 2024. So if you filed single or had a household in 2024 and you're married now, by the time when you submit your application, and we'll be asking that, what's your marital status? When did you get married or divorced or whatnot? However, whenever that status changed from single, because everyone starts out single. Also get your spouse's 2024 federal tax return document. We do need both. We do want both because we want this combined family income for 2024, even if you are married after 2024. Now, if you filed married jointly in 2024 and you're not married now, then again, we'll figure that out. We'll see that as you submit your application, as you go through that process. But just let us know. There's a section. It's kind of this. It's a nice catch-all section. I'll refer to several times called special circumstances. In that section, you have a place to upload text box, upload files. There's a text box to tell us stuff. If you filed married, filing jointly in 2024, but you're not married now, just let us know that. Let us know maybe what your current income situation is. So you could tell us what that was when you filed in 2025. As we get closer to filing for 2026, you can tell us what that might be. There are some options there because we really want to get your family income information that kind of is most accurate for your current situation. And by current situation, that has to do with your marital status. If you were single when you filed in 2024, but you're married now, we need both of you and your spouse's income information. All right. The other part of determining your need and the amount of award that you can receive is your family size. So the question that we come up with is, who do you count? Who do you include in your family size? Now, based on your age, we will either be asking about your parents' family size if you are 24 years or younger. We will be asking about your parents' family size. That is consistent with federal law. If you are married and you're under 24, then we'll be asking about your family situation. There are some exceptions to that, but if we ask about your parents' family size, then you want to make sure that you include yourself because you're the applicant. You want to make sure that you're included in this application need, and we also want you to include your parents. So could be step parents, even if you don't live with them. So we see this a lot where it's like, oh, I'm 23 years old, I'm living on my own. Why do you need to have my parents' family information? Well, it's federal law. It's part of the federal financial aid rules that we gather this information depending on how old you are. So even if you don't live with your parents, your step parents, your combination, whatever that might be, we want you to include yourself and we want you to include your parents as long as they are still living, and as long as they are um, still living in the same household. So, parents who have passed away or parents who don't live in the household because you were divorced or separated, you wouldn't include those. All this is spelled out in the form itself, so you'll see it again. But I just want to kind of highlight that. Now, if you are over the age of 24, if you're married, if you have children, if you are in the military, we will be asking about your family size. And again, we want to start with you. Always be sure it's a good idea every single time with the family size. And we're trying to work on this, make sure that this happens, but always include yourself first, just to because you should always be included in your family size. And then if we're asking about you and your family, include your spouse if you're married. Okay. So far, just counting the people here, it's always going to be at least one. And if you're married, it's going to be two. If you have children, it's going to be more than two. If you have both your parents, if we're asking about your parents' family size, and both your parents still live together, then it's going to be at least three. So just thinking about the count right now of how many people you include. Right? And a little bit of a flow chart here, okay? Because beyond you, there are other people who might be eligible to include in your family size. So a little flow chart here to say, hey, if we're asking about your parents, and again, your parents means it's you and your parents, whether you live with them or not. And then if you have any siblings, if your siblings live with your parents now, you might be able to include them. But if they don't, then you can't include them. So we've got this one here where it's like, does your sibling live with your parents now? No, no, they don't. All right. Do not include them in the count of people in your family size. Right. So, but let's say that they do live with your parents now. So it's got you, your parents, and one sibling. Okay. Yes, they do live with their parents now. And then the next question is, well, do your parents provide more than half of your siblings' financial support now? Let's say your sibling is 11. And yes, okay, your parents are providing all of the financial support for your sibling. So, yes, you've answered that second question. Yes, they live with your parents now. Your parents provide more than half of their financial support. And then the last question that we need to ask and think about is, will they continue to provide? Will your parents continue to provide more than half of the siblings' financial support through the end of June next year. Again, if your sibling is 11, then yes, it's reasonable. You make a good, reasonable guess and say, yes, they're going to keep living there. Parents are going to continue to provide support. So, yes, if you can answer yes to all three of these questions, then yes, do include that sibling on your family size. If any one of these are going to be no, okay, maybe the sibling lives with your parents, but they're 37 and they're maybe saving up money right now. They're just living with your parents to help build up kind of a nest egg, get on their own. So your parents don't provide half of your sibling support now. So that any of these ones, if it's no, then you would not include the sibling in your family size. Now, similarly, if there are other people that live with your parents, so we see these grandparents is a very common one that we see. Your parents are caring for their parents, for their parents-in-law. If the other people also, if you can answer yes to all three of these questions, then you can include that person on your family size. So if your grandparents live with your parents, if your parents provide more than half of your grandparents' financial support, and if they will continue to provide more than half of that support, again, we're making a good faith guess, best guess on through the end of June of next year. The answer to all three of those questions is yes. Then yes, you can include your grandparents in your family size as well. Again, it all starts here with this: do they live with your parents now? Your siblings live with them now. Your grandparents live with them now. Right? That's one of the ones we got to look. And then here, half of the financial support now, half of the financial support through the end of June. Those again are ones where you got to kind of look at it and go, oh yeah. And again, if you are not sure, you can always tell us about your situation in special circumstances. If we have any questions, we'll assign a form, but I don't want to get into that in this webinar. This is just kind of thinking about as you're submitting your application. So thinking about who you include in your family. Similarly, for you, if we are asking about your family, and you're wondering if you can include your child in your family size, again, it's the same three questions. Do they live with you now? Does your child live with you now? Do you provide more than half of the financial support for your child? And will you continue to provide more than half through the end of the fiscal, through the end of June? And again, you need to be able to answer yes to all three of those, and then you can include. If any one of those is no, then don't include them. And the final one here is, are there other people that are living with you? The ones that we see the most common are fiance or partner, not married, significant other. We've seen those. Uncle, nephew, other people that live with you as part of in your house. Can you include them? And again, do they live with you now? Yes, they do. Okay, well, on to the next question. Do you provide more than half of the person's financial support? For example, are they currently unemployed? Are they disabled? Are they reliant on you for financial support? Are they underage, for example? Yeah, those types of things. Okay. And then will you continue to provide more than half of the other person's support through the end of June? If you can answer yes to all of those, then again, include that person along with yourself in your family size. So again, we're looking at minimum, depending on each situation is unique. Each living situation is unique. But if you can answer these three questions as yeses for a person who lives with you now, provide this financial support, and you will continue to do so, then do include that person on your family size. And again, if we have any questions, we will reach out to you to get any confirmation that we need. Okay? But just think about these three. Okay. So, common pitfalls. Some of these are related to the information that we shared, which is basically like if you have this information before you start your application, you're going to avoid the common pitfalls because you're going to just be able to go, oh, they're asking me for this right now. Let me go and let me get that information. Here it is. Boom, put it in my application. Move on to the next question. And with fewer pitfalls, it's a quicker review. It's a smoother review. We can get through that pretty quickly. So starting with the occupation of the program. Once you have that occupation, once you know I am an asbestos worker registered after a particular date, that's important too. Once you have that, the first thing we're going to ask you to do is use drop down menus to select your occupation and your program. Now, we want you to note that some occupations occur multiple times in a drop down. So we're going to pick the occupation that matches your program. And if there's a drop down in the program, you're going to pick that one that matches. Now, here's some examples because I know that kind of like seeing it might be a little bit more helpful. Okay, so here's an example where we have in the occupation drop down, there are 3 entries for inside electrician. And again, knowing whether you're an inside electrician, 01, that's important to know, okay, in your occupation. But depending on which one of these 2 inside electricians you pick, it will automatically, if you pick one of those inside electricians from this drop-down menu, it's gonna pull up and say, oh, you're an inside electrician with Performance Electrical Apprenticeship Committee, because they have different requirements for completion of that program than the other inside electrician in this dropdown. That's why there are different in the dropdown. So if you pick one and you say, oh, no, I am not inside electrician with Performance Electrical, pick the other electrician, inside electrician in the list. And if you're a construction electrician, make sure you pick that one. That's a different entry in this drop-down list. So when you're done, you should see a combination of occupation and program. Before you go into the next screen, make sure that that information is correct. Now, in addition to some of the, like here's another example where laborer appears 2 times in the dropdown. So occupation laborer. If I pick this first laborer choice, it then gives me a select drop-down menu for the program. And I've got to pick which one of those programs that I'm in for those laborers. Now, the reason why these 2 have, are in the drop-down for program is because they have the same requirements. So we've got laborer at SITSI, same requirements as the laborer in Inland Northwest, but we want to know which one you're in so we know that we're looking at the right one when we check your apprenticeship program. So again, then you would just pick, if you're a laborer with SITSI, then you would pick that. If you're a laborer with Northwest Laborers, then this means you need to pick the other option for laborer because your apprenticeship program, Northwest Laborers, is not in this list. So pick the other option for laborer, and it should automatically populate with the Northwest Laborers. Now, if you don't see your program or your occupation in the list, give us an email. Let us know. Because sometimes we need to add those. We need to update it. We have new programs coming on all the time. So we want to make sure that we get the right information. So just let us know. But you should see the combination of your occupation in a drop-down menu and your program. When you're all done, if you are an inside electrician with Performance Electrical Apprenticeship Committee, and this is what you want to see on that very first page of the application. And again, we're going to check that as one of the first things. If it's not right, we're going to say, hey, can you help clarify? Can you help, make sure that we're looking at the right information, any correction that needs to happen, so that we can get that information correct. All right. The second thing is providing your full legal name. So if you are David, if you go by Dave, your full legal name, first name, you should put David here and Dave in the preferred name. That's fine. Perfectly fine. Okay. If you have two last names, hyphenated, maybe, or not, put both of those in the last name. This is just a text box for you to put in your name. Okay? Middle initial is always optional. You can, that sometimes is helpful, but really, we're going to be matching you up again with when we look at your apprenticeship program. If you received an award in a previous year, if you got any grants from the states, we're going to look for a match. And if they don't match, your legal names here doesn't match, we might send you a birth date or social security number verification form just to make sure, just to check. So that's one of those things that just have that. And again, this is information you would have, but driver's license is a document that we would use. Look on that. Make sure you have your legal name here, and any preferred name you want, you can always put that here in the optional piece. We also use this legal name for when we process a payment for you. So we not only are going to check this at the beginning to make sure that we're looking at the right person, but once we say to you, okay, you're going to get an award, here's your money, we're going to pay you, we pay out through, right now we pay out through what's called a statewide vendor number. That statewide vendor number process requires you to provide your legal name. So we need to be able to match those things up as well at the end of the application process. So having that here at the very beginning helps the process go smoothly at the beginning, as well as when we get money and are ready to pay you, we can get you paid quickly as well. Your full address. This is another one where just a tip, a common pitfall that we see is apartment numbers or unit numbers. You can put those there in the address line too, to let us know that so again, when we are going to be sending out a payment, we need to be able to confirm that we're sending the payment to the right location if we're mailing a check, or that we're sending it to the right person based on your address. So having that information here in the address line too, it's something that we see the most frequently is left off. So if you live in an apartment, if you have a unit number, do put that information in here so that we can do that. Your city is something that we will confirm like on your apprenticeship record. So we look at what city you have listed in your apprenticeship program. And so having that full address is accurate. Most critical though, the thing that is most often kind of a pitfall that to avoid is make sure to include a unit or an apartment number here in address line 2. Now, I kind of mentioned this or alluded to this earlier when I was saying, if you're 24 years or younger, you're going to get a series of questions that are yes, no. And some of them are pretty sensitive. Some of them, we understand there's some trauma associated with it. So we try to make this process as smooth as possible, but we do require some documentation of some of these statuses. If you're 24 years or younger, we will be asking you to provide some of this information. So, for example, if you were orphaned, or at any time a ward of the court, or in foster care, if you have been legally emancipated, or if you are in a guardianship, there will be these kind of toggle questions here, yes or no, and you got to go through each one of them and click either yes or no. If you click yes on one of those, it'll ask you to upload an official court document or state agency document. So that is the confirmation that we need. And we're trying to streamline this process so that we ask for this during the application process. So just be aware that that is kind of an update. If you applied before, and if any of these statuses are apply to you, um, please do get an official document to upload when you go through this part of the application process. There are two other statuses that are homeless or at risk of being homeless and unusual parent circumstances. If you have those, again, um, some documents might be available. For example, if you've been determined a homeless youth or at risk of being homeless through your high school or through college's financial aid administrator, you can upload a document there to document that. But there's also going to be a text box where you can provide us with a description of your situation, and there's more information on the page that says what are conditions that are that might apply for homelessness or at risk of being homeless, and you or unusual parent circumstances. But just provide again. We recognize that these are sensitive situations. We want to be as we'll keep these in full confidentiality, but we do need to confirm this in order because again we're stewarding federal or sorry public taxpayer money. So according to federal law, we have to make sure that we can confirm this information. And the last page of the application you'll get to is called the signature page, and it gives you a summary. It basically says, hey, here's all the stuff that you told us so far. Just do a quick double check on that information. Again, checking for things like your occupation, your program, making sure that information is correct. Other things that we see kind of often where there's errors sometimes, like just a number. Somebody will give us a birth date, and instead of saying 2002, they'll put 1002. It's like it's just a typo, but that's kind of a way that you can check that. Social security numbers or ITIN, your tax identifying number. Make sure that the numbers are in the right order. Sometimes they get swapped if you're typing it. Your residency date. So this is when you first became a Washington resident. Again, you have to be a resident for at least a year to be eligible. Um, if you've lived in Washington your entire life, you're born in Washington and lived in Washington, it should be the same date as your birth date. Sometimes those dates don't match up, and we see a residency date that is before the birth date, earlier than the birth date. It's like, we need to check that. We need to get confirmation of what your residency date actually is. So just double check that. And then the last one that we often see kind of as a common pitfall is education information. So there's a section in the application called education information where you tell us about your education. And you do have to have a high school diploma or equivalent. You cannot have a bachelor's degree or higher. And the thing that we just want you to check on this one is make sure that it's not conflicting. We want to make sure that they match up, that they align with each other. So on here, this is what the picture of this of that signature page would look like. You've got education information here that says, oh, your high school completion is high school diploma, and your current highest level education is some college. That's good. That's fine. That's not conflicting information. You might say here, current high school, highest level of education is high school / GED. That's fine. That's not conflicting. But over here, what we have is conflicting information where you're telling us here in one line, high school completion, high school diploma. Yes, you have the high school diploma. But on the very next line, it says less than a high school diploma. That's information that's conflicting. We will have to follow up on that. We got a form that we would send you, an education verification form, where you'll have to send us like a picture of your high school diploma or a picture of your GED or a transcript from community college. So something that shows that you are eligible for the grant. Just making sure that this is not conflicting information, that helps us streamline the process. And again, this is the very last page on that. It's called signature page. And then at the very bottom, there's a space for you to sign and submit, and you should get a confirmation email that says, "Yep, we got it." And then we'll start the process of reviewing. Those are the common pitfalls that I just wanted to kind of highlight, bring up around the around that signature page, around that information that you put into the application, and that you can check on the very end on that signature page. All right. So the last suggestion that we have is just stay connected with us as we review your application. We may assign a form to you. You would get an email from this do not reply. It'll say, hey, a form has been assigned to you. Go in and log in and provide that information. Or we might email you from this WGA email and ask you a question like, hey, you said this about your or unusual parent circumstances. We need to get a little bit more information about that. So go back into your application, provide some more information. We may call you if it is a more complicated situation that we need to work through and kind of want to talk through with that. So again, make sure that you have the phone number that's on the contact information that we can reach out to you. We'll try to leave a voicemail. We set up a voicemail inbox that helps us be able to do that. So we'll try to work to get the information that we need through a variety of ways. And please do watch and respond for those requests. We understand things take time. If we ask you to get a particular kind of document, like your tax, let's say that you didn't file taxes in 2024, well, you can get a form from the IRS that it's a non-filing status letter. Sometimes that takes time. We understand that. We're willing to, if you're still working on it, just let us know. Just say, hey, I'm still working on that. I've got my application in. I've requested the document, but they got to mail it to me, so we can do that. Email is the best, so that when we have that kind of like documentation, we can go, oh, here's that email. We can look at it and we can file it away, and we can go, yep, we got it. Because if we don't hear from you for 45 calendar days after we've reached out, after we've assigned a form or sent you an email or given you a call or two, we will reject your application for being inactive. You can always submit another one, but it does start that whole process over. And we will ask for whatever information that we were asking for before. We'll just ask for it again and see if you can get that information to us. All right. A couple common questions as we get here in about 10 minutes left in the webinar. And then I'll open up for some other questions. Again, you can use you can come off mute at that time or open up the chat and type in your questions. But just some common questions that we get around from apprentices from last year. How often can you apply? Generally, you should apply one time during a cycle. Now, the cycle, as I said, the cycle will open tomorrow. We got a new application cycle. So everybody, you can apply tomorrow. That's fine. That can be your one time, typically for an application cycle until the end of June next year. There are rare cases where we might ask you to submit another application. We'll reach out to you, or if you say something changed, I've got a new situation, new financial situation. I got married. Congratulations, great. Now your family size is different than it was when you first applied. Okay. Typically, if you haven't already gotten an award, you just go back into your application that you submitted first and make an update. You can update your application at any time until we give you an award. And then after that, again, rare cases where you might want to submit another application, but you typically are going to get one application, one award within this July 1st through the end of June next year. Timeline. How long before you get an award? Again, we're going to try to get to these applications as quickly as we can, but we had 500 applications submitted in July alone last year. 400 of them came in 1 week. So we try to get within a 2-day window of an initial review, but we're going to see how many applications we get. And if you are returning, if you are somebody who got an award last year or the previous year, if you already got an award anytime before the application you're going to be submitting starting tomorrow, you will not know until September at the earliest. That is when your program is going to report your hours. That's when we're going to be able to confirm whether or not you met the hours from your last award. That is the timeline that we're looking at. That's just to be aware of that. We've got that posted on our website, and we're going to try to put that into the portal as well. In all cases, we do thank you for your patience as we work through our review process, and just know that, yeah, if we've asked you something, yeah, we're going to try to get, we've asked you to try to get something back within a 45-day window. We will work our hardest to get through the applications as quickly as possible so that you're not waiting a long time without any information. So now the common question, what if you made too much money? Like I said, we're asking for your 2024 tax, your family income. That's where we're going to start. If you made, if you're not making as much money now as you did in 2024, if you got a new job, you just started your apprenticeship program and you're basically, starting from ground zero. Your income is not going to be the same as it was in 2024. Let us know that. Tell us that in the special circumstances. Just say, hey, I'm not making the same amount of money that I made in 2024. We'll work with you to get more up to date information about your income situation, about your family size information. But let us know in the application. The worst thing that happens is you look at that income and we say, oh, you're not eligible. We look at the income from 2024 and we say, you're not eligible for an award. And we deny your application, we reject it. And then you come back and go, oh, I was rejected because I'm not income eligible, but I'm not making that much money now. You email us that, or you call us and you tell us that. The worst thing is we go, okay, submit a new application. That's kind of where we are. We go back to square one of submitting a new application. Just tell us that when you submit your first application, and we'll work with you to get your to see what you would be eligible. Also related to income is, why are we asking about your parents' income? Kind of talked about this for family size. We're basing it on your age. If you're 24 years or younger, we ask for your parents' family size. We ask for your parents' income. If you answered no to any of those status conditions, so the ones like orphaned, foster care, at risk of being homeless, unusual parents, if those are all no for you, then we are going to ask about your parents' income as well, because that is in alignment with the federal regulations for financial aid. So that's the way that we have to operate for this grant based on state and federal law. So that's why we're asking about your parents' income. It doesn't matter if you live with them. It doesn't matter, it is all dependent on your age. And that's at that 24 years or younger, we're going to be asking about your parents. Now, again, if any of these conditions apply, then put yes, provide us the information, and we'd ask about your income. We'd ask about your family size. But when we ask about your parents' income, that's the reason. Oh, so one of the big questions, how much is the award? If you got an award this year, it's going to be different next year. It changes every year and is set by the state legislature. So starting July 1st, the maximum award is $2,548, and it depends on your income, family size, how many hours you have left in your program, basically your need to complete your program. Those factors will determine the amount of award that you get. And we determine each award independently based on the information you provide us in your application. It's a need-based grant. So we look at income, your family size, and the number of hours that we're awarding you. So if you're awarding you for a full year, you're more likely to get a full award maximum amount. If you're going to be done with your program in 3 months, you may only get a 3-month award, which is about a 25% award. for your program. Again, we want to support you in the completion of your program. We want to make sure that we're accurately, we're good stewards of this public public tax money. All right, and finally, just contact information. When we email you, there are two emails that we're going to use: WGA and do not reply. We find that these do not reply often will end up in the spam or the junk folder. This is one. This is the one where, like, we send an automatic reminder every week. If there's a form that we've asked you to complete every week, we would send you an automatic reminder that says, "Hey, please log in and complete that form and give us the information so we can continue processing your application." Check your spam folder, check your junk folder, but add both of these emails as safe senders so that it doesn't get lost in that spam or junk folder. And then anytime you need to reach out to us, email works best, WGA. You can also call, again, more kind of like complicated walkthrough, talk through situation things where we need to kind of work through options. That's a good option for us there. So, all right. I know we are rapidly coming down to the end of the hour, but I do want to ask any if there are any questions, and I do see one here in chat. If I was denied for not making my hours and just starting a new job from being laid off. So we do have an option. We wouldn't deny you. What we would do is we would assign you a form called the Satisfactory Program Progress form, and you would tell us exactly that, that situation. For example, we know there's downtimes. We know there's layoffs. We know there's times when you're sitting like on the job, you're waiting for a job assignment. Just the first thing we'll do is we'll send you that form, and we'll ask you to tell us, were there any situations? Maybe you were on medical leave. Were there situations that caused you to not get your hours? And you can tell us that information, and we will review that to see if you could be eligible for an award. I'm not going to go into too much of those details, but you won't be denied right away for not making your hours. We'll work with you and try to get some more information from you on your situation and see if we can award you in through that program progress. All right, question. Thank you. What if I recently started this Monday? Can I still apply? Yes, you can apply starting tomorrow because the application for the current, the current application is open. It closes today at midnight. So I would recommend, if you started this Monday, apply tomorrow. You do have to be a registered apprentice. So if you're going to start in a program, say next month, wait until you're in the program and then apply after that. All right, I need to verify my non-filing status for the year 2023. I've been in prison since 2022. Not sure about that. You should be able to get a letter from the IRS with a non-filing status. When you submit an application, just let us know that, and we can give you information on how to reach out to the IRS for that non-filing status letter. You can provide that information. All right. Does previously receiving financial aid from community college affect eligibility for the grant? Up to a point, yes. You can receive up to 6 years of financial aid across both community college and the Washington Grant for Apprenticeship. So if you went and got 2 years of community college and you got full financial aid for those 2 years, you have 4 years of grant eligibility left that you could use for your apprenticeship program. We track that within our system, so you don't need to worry about like letting us know that information too much. The only thing that we do ask is if you are currently getting financial aid through a community college. If you're going to be getting financial aid through the 26-27 school year, do let us know that. There is a question in the application that asks about that because we're going to have to figure out how much you might be eligible to receive above and beyond any financial aid that you're getting from the community college. All right, I'm in a Northwest Barber Academy. It's a 1,000-hour program to prepare for state barber's license. Is this program eligible for grant despite not being an apprenticeship program? Unfortunately, no, because the minimum requirement for a state registered apprenticeship program is 2,000 on the job hours and 144 related supplemental instruction hours per year. So yeah, another very common program that we get asked questions about is commercial driver's license, your CDL. CDLs by themselves are not eligible for Washington Grant for apprenticeship funding. But if you are getting your CDL as part of a state registered apprenticeship program, such as a commercial truck driver, a commercial construction truck driver, heavy equipment truck driver or operator, if you're getting certification as part of a registered apprenticeship program that has at least 2,000 on the job hours per year and total and 144 related supplemental instruction hours per year, then you can get, then that program is eligible for the Washington Grant for Apprenticeship. All right. Thank you for those questions in the chat. If there are any others, I'll just hang on here for a moment. Again, thank you for attending. Thank you for participating. As I said, we have recorded this webinar, so we'll be posting this for your reference. And again, if you have any questions at any time, feel free to reach out to contact us on this application or by email or by phone. A lot of information is provided within the application on avoiding some of these common pitfalls, but just wanted to kind of highlight those for you as you work through this process. And again, thank you for attending the webinar this afternoon. Have a good day, everyone.